today, and we're going to be going through both the early slate and the main slate. The early slate actually locks in about a half an hour, so we are going to have to just get after it and start building. And then after, excuse me, definitely under the weather today. And then after that main early slate locks, then we're going to do our DFS preview of the main slate. And again, me being here solo, we're going to just make this more about process. Not going to go through game by game. We're going to just kind of take a look at all the players from the top down and look at the projections, and then see who we think we'd want to play. And then we're going to maybe build a hand-built lineup, and then we're going to see what SaberSim will let us do when we do MME. So welcome everybody, and let's just start. I'm going to share my screen for the early slate first, because we're under time crunch here. It is only a 3-game slate. So the first question that gets begged is it small enough to use pitchers, hitters against pitchers? The answer to that question is also it answers also the question of what type of pitching we have available today, because in the early slate there is just barely any pitching that you can play. So I guess the answer then is that yes, you can use hitters against pitchers as well. I know that 2-game slates you can easily do it. In 4 games I typically don't, but 3-game slates is probably right on the borderline. Now SaberSim, they actually allow you, their default is to allow pitchers versus hitters on 3-game slates. So we're going to go with that. But on this particular slate, I think it's even more available just because of the lack of pitching in general. So if you look through it, like for example, and again, we're just looking at the players here. Probably should get the games up so we know who's playing. But yeah, let's actually do that. For those of you who don't know who's playing, because I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with this slate. So let's bring it up here. Okay. So just to remind us, it's Miami at Cincinnati, Colorado at Milwaukee, and Texas at Oakland. Now, instinctively, you would think that that Cincinnati would be a good stack, that Milwaukee would be a good stack, and that probably Texas would be a good stack. But we're going to have to see. But if you just eyeball these pitchers, I mean, this is kind of a brutal combination. You have a projected long reliever, Tarnock. You have Flexen, who we just looked at his game log. I mean, look at what this dude's done. I mean, like he's like negative every game. And then Hauser is like actually a pitcher at least. And Montgomery, I mean, he's going to be clearly the best option. So when you see him at 10K, you're like, whoa. I mean, on a normal slate, he would be 10K, but kind of kudos for DraftKings for pricing him this way on the slate, because he probably is going to rate as clearly the best. Then Nash, I would say that the way they're listed here is probably, actually, I would say Montgomery the best, then Ashcraft, then Hauser, then maybe Hauser's next, then Cueto. But we'll look at the projections and see what we come up with here. I'm going to put the chat in there as well. All right, so let's then once again pull up this the early slate, and you'll see, your first clue is when your position players are rated higher than your pitchers according to Sheets value score. You know that the pitching is terrible, and when your top pitcher has a Sheets value score of 28.65, that's atrocious. So don't be surprised if these guys don't perform very well. And you look at this, you have Hauser at 28, Montgomery at 27. Then you have to get, Cueto is like 16. So this combination. Where's Ashcraft? I don't even have him projected for some reason. Why would he not be? He's like all the way at the bottom. So it looks to me like if you were just figuring out who to play, it would be Montgomery and Hauser, and it would be not even remotely close. And which is why look at the ownership, like 50 and 60%. Seems to make a lot of sense. Then when it comes to the actual players, before we go to the actual stack scores, you'll see that, well, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Milwaukee's out of the top 6 values. And then you have Avisal Garcia, who is the top overall play, and then you have Soler. So I would guess Miami and Milwaukee would be the 2 stacks that I'd probably want to play, just even looking at the individual players. Now let's look at the stack tool here. Where is that? MLB DK stacks early. I think it would be here, right? Yeah, here it is. Okay. So when we look at these things again, this is the way we do this. And this is what I do for every slate, regardless of size. We rate them 3 ways: raw stack, value stack, and modified stack. And we just kind of see where we are. So first of all, with raw stack, it's actually pretty close between all 4 of these top ones: Miami, Milwaukee, Texas, Cincinnati, and a big size drop to Colorado, and even more so to Oakland. So these guys are probably off the list. Instinctively, I would think that, Miami's probably the best because they're the top rated and they're not the highest owned. Like, I have them lower owned than both Cincinnati and Milwaukee. So if I'm hand building, it seems pretty logical that Miami would be my favorite, followed by Texas. So if we were going to build, a kind of an optimal stack, it would be Hauser, Montgomery with Miami and Texas. And you could do that because, again, if you want to play Milwaukee, Texas together, you couldn't do a full stack of both because you'd only play guys from 2 teams. This way, when you play Miami and Texas together, you're avoiding Milwaukee chalk, you're avoiding Cincinnati chalk. So that's probably what I would do, just based on the raw points. And when it comes to value, pretty much the same. You do get more of a love for Oakland when it's for raw points than raw points, but you still have Miami and Milwaukee as up there. So Miami, once again, looks very, very strong. And Texas is certainly, in the mix. And then when you search by modified stack on the right, which puts them all together, you have Miami and Milwaukee, which kind of stand out. But this is kind of interesting because the ownership of the Milwaukee guys and the value piece is a little less than the Miami's. So that's where you run into kind of an issue, is which guys you play. But I think overall, I think it's going to be some combination of Miami, Milwaukee, and Texas, along with Montgomery and Hauser, that makes things work. The only thing that I neglected to mention is Cueto. So let me just take a look at him for a second. Because I got to him, I think, when I did some SaberSim builds. Let me just see what's the story with Cueto up here. Do I not even have him projected? That would be pretty irresponsible. No, I have him. He just looked really bad. The ownership 24 as opposed to 50. I don't know. He's projected for, what is this, 3 less points. 3 full less points than Hauser, and he's 1,000 more, so doesn't look like you're going to be able to get too different, I guess, in this early slate. But let's just take a look and see what we can build here, right? So let's, go Montgomery. And it's important, as far as process goes, to know how to do this, because even though it's not so easy or hard or whatever, on this slate, I do this for every slate, and we'll do this for the later one also. So let's go Montgomery, Hauser, and then what did we say? Miami we'll start off with. Or actually, let's start with Texas. We start with Texas. We don't know exactly, I don't think, who's playing with Texas yet, but we can guess. All right. What is it, Milwaukee? So Texas, what I'd like to do is pick guys that appear in both of these screens, whether it be modified or well, hold on a minute. Who is Miami playing? Atlanta playing Cincinnati, so there's no leverage there. There's no leverage on either of these guys. So who appears in both these? So you have Seager, Garver, and Nathaniel Lowe. So we're going to start with those. See if we can play everything we want. Garver, Nathaniel Lowe, and Seager. Okay. Now let's go to Miami. And we'll come back and fill that in a minute. But let's go back to Miami and see who we like out of there. So Miami, you want guys that appear in both. So you want Garcia. Well, no, not Garcia, but you want Soler, De La Cruz. Those two for sure. Soler, De La Cruz, and Berger. Let's see if we can fit all those guys in. Soler, De La Cruz. Who's Berger? Oh, he's a what position does Berger play? Second base, third base. So that works. Let's put him at third for now. So we take the best guys from both these teams, and now we're left with $27.50 a man. So we could just go ahead and just fill it in. Let's see who's good for value from these guys. Let's get back there. MLB stacks early. Let's just go for value. It's going to be Tavares, Grossman, Janikowski, or was it Bell, Stallings? So what positions do we need to fill out? Second base. So let's just put both these guys in. Second base. Arai is 4,400. We can't afford him, so we don't think we can play the second baseman out of here. Except, wasn't one of these guys, was Berger second base eligible? Yeah. So if Berger, we move him to second, then what do we get from third? Nothing. So third base is going to be a little bit of an issue here to play these two, but that's okay. Well, we'll do a one-off from somebody else. As far as the outfield goes, Avisail Garcia 2,400 definitely looks like the guy, and so we're left with a third baseman, and we could just pick anybody. Pick with this guy from Milwaukee. Perfect. Okay. And that's the way I'd probably build, like a hand-built lineup. All right, it's pretty easy to do. I maybe a little bit chalky, but based on my sheets, that's probably what I would end up doing. Okay. Now let's go to SaberSim then. Again, this is a very, very easy slate. You know what I mean? Unless you want to play these other dudes. And I think that's what we're going to have to be faced with is on SaberSim what we get, because I uploaded everything over here to SaberSim. These are the true DFS projections. You could use Goldies as well, or you could do an average of ours if you subscribe to the SaberSim package. I don't think it makes honestly too much of a difference. Both of our projection systems are to some degree a reflection of the industry. Mine is a little more personalized, where his is more, but his actually accounts for more data. But anyway, let's just take a look and see what we get. Let's build. I don't know. I don't even have labs to build. We'll build 50 just for the hell of it, and let's not do max exposure 70%. Let's do no max exposure, no anything. Do a min salary 29,000 just for the hell of it. And let's see what we would get. I got a feeling we're going to get all kinds of funny business here. And yeah, so when you build them with not by hand, you're not getting what I was suggesting. You're getting all kinds of Johnny Cueto. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because of that ownership discount. Because one thing that's really cool about SaberSim is it does take into account ownership pretty reasonably in building lineups. Listen, I don't have an ego when it comes to this type of thing. Like if my MME success, like when I build multiple lineups and I make big scores, is never anything to do with my hand built lineups. Okay, it's always a result of my projections and the way I tweak what SaberSim does. Honestly, they come up with all kinds of cool lineups that I never would have come up on my own. Honestly, so first thing I will look at is that stack types I don't worry about too much on a small slate, and I'd be getting about 98% Miami. So that, then you would get, the question would become like, how much do you really want of Miami? And it's just really just a risk tolerance thing. Like I probably would reduce this to say 65 or something like that. And that's just what I would do, you know. And I would also reduce probably the risk, the 5-man stacks of Miami to 40. I think that makes a little bit of sense. Now you'll see when I do that, I get all kinds of funny business here. Am I okay with 4-2-2s and 4-4s and 4-3s on a small slate like this? Yeah, I think so. And when it comes to the pitching here, it's like 90% Cueto. I mean, do I really want that? I don't know. I mean, if you get away with it, you're a freaking genius. But let's just for, you know, just for sanity, we're reducing to 70%. But you see what's going on here, right? You know, like Cueto in my overall projections looks like miserable, you know. But when you actually run an MME lineup builder through SaberSim, you end up with a lot of them, and that is because, again, it takes into account ownership, and that's really important, especially on a 3-game slate. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And I will go back and I'll answer some questions as well, but I want to make sure that we're talking about the right thing here. All right, so Clay, you were asking. I'm pretty much done with this. The only thing I would say is that, again, like, we don't know exactly what the lineup is, so we have to stay on top of that for the Texas. You're saying favorite top stacks for the main slate or for the early slate? Because the main slate, I kind of went. The early slate I already went over, like Miami, Milwaukee, and Texas. And we will get to the main slate in about 2 minutes, I guess. Let me just for those people that are playing FanDuel, I will look at it. I'm not playing it, so see if there's any difference here. When you look at FanDuel, my sheets for that, you see Hauser's the top play, and then it's actually pretty close between all three of these guys. So I probably would play Cueto on FanDuel because of the ownership discount. He's not that much worse than these guys. So I would probably, if I played FanDuel, which I'm not today, and I was hand building, I would play I'd play Cueto. And when it comes to the stacks on FanDuel, can't imagine how it could be much different. But let's just see. Again, same process. Raw, you have Miami, Milwaukee, Texas. Modified, Miami, Milwaukee, Cincinnati. So it's basically Miami and Milwaukee. So, probably, again, I guess that means that it's probably too chalky. But that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm coming up with. And this is the thing I wanted to mention is that someone saying, "Oh, thanks for doing this." You know, all I'm trying to do. Oh, you weren't here, Green Monster. I built a DraftKings Millie Maker lineup in the chat